Good evening from the Coliseum, and what a debacle that was. That one got out of hand real quick. The Raiders were up 13-10 at half, lost 33-13. There's some sort of sewage or skunk wreaking absolute havoc on this place right now, but it's rivaling the stink that the Raiders just put up. I'll go to you, Jerry, first. Derek Carr, totally spiraled out of control. What was your first takeaway from Gruden's first game back here?
Well, it was that they were so different. I mean, the first half, Carr wasn't perfect. He kind of threw shallow in the end zone and Cook intercepted. But for the most part, it's what you expected of a Gruden coach team. A lot of throws to tight ends, a lot of ball possession, a lot of check downs. That's what you're going to see all year. That's what he does. But in the second half, there was no continuity. They couldn't hold on to the ball. They couldn't stop the Rams. And when it was over, the honeymoon was over, because I was down in the field for the end of the game, and there were cat calls and boos, and they were directed at Derek Carr and John Gruden. And when John was hired on January 6th or whatever, would you have ever envisioned that?
Yeah, and you saw the hero status John Gruden had just a couple weeks ago when he had that fan event over in San Leandro, and now with the Khalil Mack trade with this, that's over. It's totally gone. Dieter, what is your one reason, if you had to choose one, why this game got so ugly for the Raiders in the second half?
Well, it's absolutely Derek Carr. I mean, you look at that performance. The first half, he looked like that 2016 version of Derek Carr, the guy who was going to win MVP for a while there. It wasn't deep. It wasn't this spread thing. I thought Gruden had a great game plan. Yes, there's a lot of checkdowns, but he was taking advantage of where the Rams were weakest, and that was the linebacker position. That meant Jared Cook had a big day. It meant the running backs were going to get a lot of balls thrown to him. There's no problem with that if you have a quarterback who can execute the basics. Derek Carr proved completely incapable of executing even the most basic stuff in the second half. He was feeling the phantom pressure that we saw all last year again. He was totally rattled. He was incompetent, and that just cannot happen. This team does not have enough talent to not get at least average competent play from the quarterback position. If Derek Carr goes out and does this again, next week, the week after that, John Gruden is going to have a really big dilemma on his hands. This needs to get corrected ASAP. We saw what it can look like. It can look pretty damn good. But we also saw the worst-case scenario in one game. They got to the crux of it. This entire team revolves around Derek Carr. That's how a lot of NFL teams are. I don't know if Derek Carr's up for it or not, I'll be honest.
Right. First game post-Khalil Mack era, Raiders had 2 quarterback hits. Bruce Irvin had a nice strip sack. Rams recovered, but Arden Key struggled to get pressure. Tank Carradine ran with the first team all preseason, and now he was inactive. Jerry, what do you think of the defensive line's first performance for all the youth they have against a pretty decent Rams offensive line?
Well, they were looking for those 3 rookies to come through, not just Arden Key, but an interior push from P.J. Hall and Maurice Hurst. They got none of that. Carradine was a guy, he was going to come out in passing downs anyway, so the fact that they replaced him for this game and started a veteran, Frosty Rucker, I don't see that as being anything significant, but, they're going to be judged on how they play with a pass rush without Khalil Mack. The Raiders aren't talking about it. Gruden's not going to talk about it, but all the fans are going to talk about it. And the fact is that the reason they don't have a pass rush is because they got 2 first-round draft picks instead.
Right. Two quick notes to finish off here. Amari Cooper, 1 target, 1 catch, 9 yards. Marcus Peters smothered him to start. Derek Carr didn't have to force things his way with Jalen Richard, Jared Cook, viable options, but, certainly didn't look like the focal point John Gruden described. And lastly, in somewhat more significant news, the Raiders' long snapper tore his ACL, I was told, out for the year. Lee Smith filled in pretty sufficiently tonight. 3 clean snaps, 1 on a punt, 2 on a field goals, but the Raiders will need to get a new long snapper once they shelf. You want to be the long snapper? I don't think so. Once they shelve DePaula for the season. Matt Overton, maybe, former Colts Jaguars long snapper. John Kondo, longtime Raiders snapper. So we'll see. Obviously, not as important in the long term as Derek Carr, John Gruden, Amari Cooper, pass rush, but something of note nonetheless. That's it for us. Jerry, myself, Dieter from the Coliseum, and we will see you in Denver next weekend. Have a good night.